Hi, my name is Kira. This is Kira of All Trades on Phresh Phactory TV. Thank you so much for coming to the show and joining me today. Today, this is Careers in Data Part 2, and I promised I would follow up with some of the more distinctive, defined careers in data that I wanted to do some research on. So, the premise of this show is that half of the time I'm teaching about careers that I'm aware of, and half of the time I'm learning. So I really wanted to dig a little bit deeper into some of the careers in data that I wasn't exactly sure about. So I did some digging. And I do want to do a small recap. So, what we talked about last time were the careers that we all know and love, to begin with data entry clerks. Data entry clerks are the people who are responsible for putting information into a system. We also talked about data miners, who are the ones who take a large swath of information and then turn it into something useful. They either find the useful information out of it or they turn it into something useful. In the example before, I used that there was a dig for gold, and there was also dirt that surrounded the gold, and maybe even silver. Not to say that it wasn't valuable assets, but those were not exactly the useful information that the miner was looking for. And in that case, gold would be what they were looking for. So a data miner would be the person who gets the useful information out of the scenario. And then we talked about data analyst. We talked about data analysts being the people who are basically looking at this information and evaluating it in a way that they can gather information that can solve problems for a business or a customer, or the government or a bank or whatever the case may be. The analysis of the information is done by the person, but also with the use of tools or software in order to help them have those pieces of data visualized. They can provide those pieces of information in a way that can be seen and then shown, so as to explain whatever the solution is of the problem that they're trying to solve. So if, for instance, a business is looking to find out how many patrons they're going to have in the month of December, and it's only July. These are going to be some questions that can be solved through the use of data analysis, because if, for instance, they already have 5 years of data of how many customers they have coming in their business each month, then there would be a way to mathematically predict or solve or answer questions regarding how many patrons would be estimated to be patronizing their business in the month of December based on the information that they have. So, data analysis is the process of looking through this information and being able to solve those problems. So, a data analyst, as a person, is a person who has those skills to use certain software, even sometimes Excel spreadsheets, to be able to arrange and use data in a way that will be able to solve the problems of whatever group that's requesting their help. So today we're going to move forward a little bit. I want to be able to give a little bit more information about each of the careers as we go along. This time I wanted to talk about the salaries that are related to some of these careers. So if we're going to go through a step by step progression, and we start off with the data analyst. The data analyst is the first step to be able to grow into some of these other careers. So to get a salaried position as a data analyst, one could expect in the United States to bring in about $65,000 a year. So that's about 5,000 something dollars a month, US dollars. And some of the prerequisites for corporate work in a large corporation is to have a bachelor's degree in math or engineering or computer science, something to that degree. But I also didn't see much information about this, but I do know that anyone with the skills to use the software, to understand how to solve these problems, can also work contract, can also show that they have the skills to individuals who need them, and they can work on a one-on-one basis with these companies or nonprofits or government entities or whatever the case may be in the same way. So if you have those skills, learning the software would be the next step. And then if, for instance, the corporate route is not your way to go, you still can market those individual skills. And if you're on pace to be able to make 5,000 something dollars a month from a corporate type setting, there are plenty of ways to use your skills in a freelance way to help the individual businesses or groups that need it to be able to see very similar income. So, yeah, I just wanted to add that a lot of these we should be talking about their salaries, and I want to make sure to include them when it's valid. And as we're progressing through the data careers chart, you're going to see that money go up as well. So the first step on the data careers trajectory is going to be the data analyst, and that data analyst can be expected to make about $65,000 a year. There's a lot of STEM type education that's required in the background. And, thumbs up and shouts out to all of the math teachers out there, all the science teachers out there, and anyone who realizes that engineering and technology are the future, period. I mean, they're the current. So, there's lots of space for everyone to participate. You just have to figure out where you are and how you can participate, whether you are the one who needs help or you're the one who can help someone. So, one of the other things that I find really interesting about careers in data is that pretty much across the board, what you'll find is that unlike a lot of other industries, it's pretty much a 50-50 split between men and women that take up positions within those areas. It's very random to find, or very rare to find careers where it's pretty much 50-50. It depends if it's more physical or if it's more this or more that. But that's one of those benefits that in a career that's data related, if you put your mind to it and you have the skills, you can do it. It doesn't have anything to do with, gender. There seems to be no disparity in there. And I want to make sure to find and highlight different careers that have that. Next, okay, so we've talked about the data analyst, and then if you were to step your career up to the next level, what would you be? You would be a data scientist. So a data scientist is the one that creates that analysis program that data analyst is using. So for instance, if there's going to be a way to look at this information and gather it and see it and make it into a chart and visualize it, then the data scientist is the one who is creating them. They tend to use software specific to data scientist work. One of the softwares that I saw that seemed to be very popular was Apache Spark. I've decided to use Notes, so I'm going to be looking down at my notes every once and again. They use Apache Spark. So Apache Spark seems to be one of the most well known and mostly widely used software within the data science community. So their goal is to get the most accurate data. And then once they've done that, they will go in and upgrade the program again. So it's kind of a reiteration situation where they're taking the basics, they're creating their algorithm, right? Because those are the people who we're actually looking for, is the people who's creating the algorithms on those social media sites to get our videos to go up, right? It's the data scientists. But these guys are there creating these engines that are helping to create the most useful information that is needed for a situation. So they are solving problems or attempting to solve problems by being able to get the most accurate data. So they're doing things like creating algorithms that can count how many people went onto a certain web page, or how many people um, subscribed to dog videos on a Tuesday. there there's all of these types of areas that are being counted and calculated, but there's someone who's doing it. So it's the data scientist that's back in the back doing these things. Um, in order to become a data scientist in a traditional way, in a corporate setting, um, generally a bachelor's degree of math, statistics, or engineering is required, and their income on a salary scale in the United States show to be between about 110 and $160,000 per year. So what they're doing is taking these basic corporate requirements. This is the bachelor's degree and the science background, and they're saying that it can be a salary anywhere in between those, but there's always an outlier, and it seems to be that, like the major tech companies, the Googles and the Apples and things like that, while one company might have a more or a lower salary range, the larger tech companies, their income or their salary for those particular positions seem to be about, I don't know, one and a half times whatever anyone else is giving for that salary. So just keep that in mind, that there are larger players that want you to have all of those requirements, then some, probably the best grades and all of those things, but they're paying for you to go through the traditional program. But like I keep on mentioning, if you know how to use the software, if you have the experience, if you've been doing it for however much time it took you to get comfortable, you can use those skills on a contract basis and work with those individual companies who need you to solve those problems for them, who need you to build those algorithms for them. And every day there's new software that's being built, there's new apps that are being integrated with other apps that you're currently using in order to help simplify some tasks. So it doesn't have to be where you're solving all the world's problems. It is one task at a time, and if you know how to use the software, you have the skills, you have the desire, then I'm pretty sure that you can find a way, if you don't want to go the corporate route, in order to still put your services out there and be able to make that same income, just on a different time period. So next is a machine learning engineer. So what we're doing is we're stepping through all the different careers, but these are all science related. These are all math related. These are all technology related. These are just what you do first, second, third as you progress in your career. What would you do if you started out as a data analyst? You would go on to become a data scientist, and then you could even go on now to become a machine learning engineer. But along the way, there's obviously other things that you can do. You can become a manager over things like data science. You can supervise people and do those type of tasks that will still keep you in the data realm, but more moving towards leadership, which of course will be the same whether it's a big company or a small company. Being able to manage people is always a benefit. So, in any career that you're in, if you can do your job well enough to manage other people who are doing it, all that's going to do is definitely be able to improve how much you're able to earn. And that's whether you're managing a small team as a contractor for a company that you're just doing a temporary task with or project, or whether you're doing that as your full time career that you plan on retiring from. Those things never change. It's just how much stress can you take off of the next person? How much benefit can you be to the company or to the group in order to then have that return to you in either compensation financially, or maybe a mix of time, maybe more control over your calendar, things like that. All right. So next is machine learning engineer. This one was pretty cool because I think you see what's going on. You see that machines can predict things like what you're going to write. You can get predictive text whenever you're getting ready to write an email. You can um, go to the internet and you can put in a web address and it can remember the last thing that you went to that had um, that started with that letter. So we know that machine learning is a thing and we know that there's a person behind it. So that machine learning engineer is designing software that is self-running that can create predictive models. So essentially, it's a person that is teaching a computer how to run itself and then give information that goes off into the future in a way. So, yeah, the machine learning engineer has to have a grip on many types of software, and they need to have a grip over the overall trajectory of what you're trying to do. All of this is to solve a problem. If you want to know what are careers in data, they are working with organizations to solve problems, but every organization has a different problem. Some people want to know how many times did somebody click on this first button on page one on their website. Some people want to know how are they going to help, I don't know, reduce the accidents in a certain traffic pattern. I'm sure there was a machine learning engineer that was in place in order to figure out how to make the machinery work inside of a UPS or Amazon or things like that in order to help the process move itself along. These are people that are training the software to run itself. So they have to have a grip of it first. Um, the machine learning engineer is around almost $200,000 annual salary. And that, again, is one of those situations where this is kind of the outlier, where maybe a Google or something to that effect would have that type of salary, and then general corporations would be offering around 150 to $160,000, somewhere in that range. But these all are careers that are related to getting information, putting it together, making sense of it, showing it in a way that anyone else can look on and then be able to solve a problem with it. Okay, so while I was digging in this rabbit hole and while I was going on down and finding out all kinds of information about these careers, I actually stumbled on one. So if you're still here with me, thank you very much for your time. And I want to tell you about one that I found. It's called a computer vision engineer. Um, and I have never actually heard of it. Computer vision. It is essentially a it's a it's a piece in artificial intelligence arena. It's like a job or an area within artificial intelligence that you can show things like a picture or a video or something visual to a computer, and the computer can identify things from it. So this is like, Big Brother surveillance and things like that. Even saw some examples that were really relatively recent, cool, where there was a video of COVID inside of lungs, and the computer could identify whether it was COVID or whether it was some other thing altogether just by looking at the actions that the movements were happening within that lung compared to other lungs that weren't doing that. Things like crowd control, certain movements were being tracked while other ones weren't, ones that seemed like they made sense and others that didn't. And it's kind of one of those situations where you hate to think that it's happening, but it's happening. Unfortunately, there's just a need for those kinds of things. But then it's like, well, are you getting your privacy crept on whenever a computer is able to grasp this kind of information? And as we're giving it artificial intelligence, after we're giving the computer system a way to figure out what to do next, then what? But it did seem to be a very cool area that I had never heard of, computer vision. But it makes absolute sense that that's an area. I only saw actually a couple of schools that offered a degree in computer vision, and to be able to work with those kind of visuals and be able to make them into something tangible or useful seem to be very cool. The people who end up being um, computer vision engineers are going to be people who are creating those algorithms, and they're using things like C++ and Python. These are, again, very popular pieces of software that people who have knowledge of, if they don't want to go the corporate route, don't have to, can most definitely use those skills on the open market and be able to help businesses and individuals, etc., be able to solve their problems using these softwares. It seemed like there was a very large potential growth in demand for this computer vision engineer also, which seemed cool, which means it's a job of today or career of today, but it's most definitely one that has tremendous growth in the future. It said there was a 15%. I read 15% many times of the potential growth in the career field that exists. So that's awesome. There seem to be only a couple of universities with that degree, and of all of the information about salaries that I saw, it seemed that, again, like we talked about before, a larger corporation like Google, being an outlier, offers almost maybe $200,000, 200,000 US dollars a year for a career like that. And then maybe in a regular corporate setting, the salary per year would be around $110,000 per year for a computer vision engineer. Anyway, the point of the matter is, I really had a good time going to investigate these careers a little bit further. It's because as we're going along, we're interacting with these things. We just don't know the background about who's making them, why they're making sense. And a lot of times, especially as entrepreneurs, people have software that they can't use, to be quite honest. It's like there are tools that are available to give information, but who even knows? If you can't use the software itself, or if you can't use the tool itself, sometimes you don't even know the name of the career to be able to look for to help you use it. So it doesn't matter if anybody plans on going to be these things when they grow up, or to change their life to become these things. This is relevant information because sometimes you just need to know who does what, so that when it's your turn and you need this information, you'll know who it is that you can turn to, what positions to look for, what people on the open market to ask for, um, what type of software to be looking for. These kinds of things are relatively important. So I hope I was able to shed a little bit of light today. So yeah, this is the half of Cure of All Trades where I'm definitely learning some new things. I'll be glad to share whatever information I have, but it's always something relevant. Again, thank you so much for your time. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe if you're on YouTube. And if you're watching on other platforms, or if you're listening via podcast, thank you so much. We're able to really enjoy watching people download and get information that they haven't had before. And stay tuned every Sunday at 7 p.m. for the next episode. Thank you so much for coming to the show. Bye.